President Trump temporarily halts the flow of immigrants and refugees from some Muslim-dominated countries, even if you agree with the policy. Was there a better way to roll it out? I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this episode of Right Angle comes to you thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com. Well, man, the ink was still moist on the executive order early Friday evening when the reaction began. It escalated as the weekend progressed. Premeditated protests erupted spontaneously, emerging out of nowhere in Michael Moore's Twitter feed. Obama's still acting attorney general acted one last scene and was gone. Judges blocked deportation, leaving immigrants trapped at airports, neither coming nor going. Hollywood sagged and raged in a production worthy of Alan Smithy. Senator Chuck Schumer wept openly, nostalgic for the days when Obama did what Trump is now doing, and Schumer loved it. The media regurgitated left-wing talking points that appeared out of nowhere in their email apps sent from, no doubt, private servers. And the average Republican, well, he lay low. The Trump administration said it had to do what it did quickly to keep terrorists from rushing the gates. The White House said everything went well that first weekend, that only something like 109 out of 325,000 foreigners coming to America this weekend were inconvenienced, was the word they used, inconvenienced by the order, and them only temporarily. But the news brimmed over with heart-wrenching stories of innocent people trying to reunite with families, detained without charges, stripped of their documents, and deprived of due process. Now, if you think that any bad news about the Trump administration is nothing but media lies and spin, well, then everything is awesome. Thank you. Good night. But let's assume that we're all concerned about the threat of what I call literal Islam, and that you generally support more careful vetting of immigrants to ferret out the terrorists, but you wonder whether the product launch could have gone better for the president. Stephen Green, how would you have improved the rollout of President Trump's Make America Safe Again immigration order, and what should the White House do going forward?
Well, you know what? First, before I get to your question, and especially I think your headline question, if people don't know the Alan Smithy reference, you have to look this up. It's Alan and Smithy, right. Smith with two E's on the end. That was genius, Scott. My hats off to you for that one, brother. Okay, the headline question was this the worst rollout, the best rollout? Yeah, it certainly was. And let me tell you why. If this were a normal administration, this would have been a horrible, terrible, worrisome, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're this bad out of the gate rollout of a new policy. But this isn't a normal administration. This is the Donald Trump administration. I don't mean that as an insult, so don't go changing the channel just yet. The way Trump has been doing business, really since the election, but also in a way during the primaries as well, the way he does business is to throw more mud at the wall than the media knows how to deal with and that his opponents know how to deal with.
Exactly right.
And so, yeah, this could have been handled a lot better, a lot more smoothly. He could have worked things out with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan on the Hill in advance and missed things like the green card misstep. And I know it's anathema to work with Mitch McConnell if you're a diehard Trump supporter, but there are ways of doing this better. But for Donald Trump, no. This is how he does it. It's he's the bull, and it's his china shop, and he doesn't really care how many things he breaks as long as he gets done what he sets out to do.
Well, a case could be made, and frankly has been made, that President Trump is a strategic genius, as Steve suggests. He gets the left all lathered up by staking out an extreme position. The progressive resistance backfires, rallying Trump's base. Then, as time goes on, he'll moderate his position a bit. The left will heave a sigh of relief and declare victory over the hater-in-chief. And Trump will get just what he wanted in the first place, extreme vetting of Muslim immigrants. Now, Bill Whittle, let's assume for a moment that the president's actual plan was a bit less precise than that, not so prophetic. What's the best way to instigate major change like this, and what would you do from here on out?
You know, there's nothing worse than unforced errors, friendly fire, all the rest of it. There's nothing more heartbreaking than I'm very reluctant to use a term from that game that people seem so interested in, but, you know, own goal kind of thing where you kick the ball into your own goal. Apparently it's a sport of some kind.
I've never heard of that game.
It's kickball. I think they play it in Europe.
It's something like that. Yeah. So these things they're especially regretful because they do damage, and the damage didn't have to be done. I think that the elements of what happened here have that earmark about them, that they were rushed and that they were over enthusiastically pushed. I've heard that from a few reports that it was Steve Bannon basically just running around like crazy, pushing this to go further than maybe it originally should have gone. So look, the reason I became a conservative is because I have an obligation to the truth. I think this is where the truth lies, and if the truth looks like it's somewhere else, I'll move. We cannot allow ourselves to accept things that are harmful to our ideals just because our guy does it. If it turned out, and it appears to be the case, that a number of people who are resident aliens were detained, that kind of confusion I can understand. It's an inconvenience, but it's not an outrage. But there were some reports of some of them being intimidated into basically renouncing their green cards and signing them over. And forever. If that's true, then that's disgraceful. Yeah. Now, with all of that said and meant, I agree with Steve. I think what we're seeing on the part of Donald Trump is approaching a level of actual military genius. And I'll just use two military examples because they just seem to be the clearest to me. The first one is let's say you want to go and sink the Yamato in World War II. You don't send in one plane at a time so that all of the anti-aircraft fire on the Yamato can be dedicated to one target and just knock them down one by one. You never get through. Nothing gets through. You want to flood the defenses of the target. You want to put so many airplanes over the target at the same time that the defenses are spread so thin and so wide that you have an opportunity to score and get in there and do some real damage. And I think that's part of the strategy behind Trump's extraordinary, remarkable first 10 days in terms of doing the things he said he was going to do. I think that's exactly right. When the leftists go to the operatic, high falsetto on the first bar of the first act of the opera, he's won. He's won because then it just becomes this. It's like, I think I described it before as like tinnitus, It's like this whining in your ears that never goes away, and they lose whatever impact they once had and is rapidly falling away. So the flood the defenses thing, Steve, I think is exactly right. More importantly, I think Trump has either consciously, subconsciously, maybe he's already always understood this, I don't know. But on some level, he's using it. He used it throughout the campaign. And Donald Trump has the one element that I think most military planners would tell you is the essential element in modern warfare, and that is the initiative. He has the initiative. Donald Trump is acting and the left is reacting. And as long as you have the initiative, you are literally telling the enemy where to go, where to be, and you're not there anymore. Once they're busy, you go blow up an ammo dump in the middle of nowhere where they don't expect you. They expect you to make a frontal assault. So you go blow up some ammo dump 200 miles in their rear. All of the forces converge on that ammo dump. You're not there anymore. Now you're someplace else, blowing up something else. It's initiative. And if you keep enough of the initiative, the other side becomes so confused and disoriented, they kind of give up. So I am mightily impressed with what Donald Trump has done in his first 10 days. I am likewise concerned that we don't allow the good optics and the strategic benefits of this kind of fast action to cause actual injustice to people, not just because it's damaging to us politically, although there's that, but because this country is based on fighting injustice, and we shouldn't be manufacturing any more of it. Let's just do what needs to be done the right way. Let's stop with the executive orders and pass actual legislation, and when we can. But on the other hand, let's defend the country, and let's take a little bit of a coffee break from this 40-year slow suicide pact that we've had with ourselves. Where the only obligation that America has in the world is to offer its throat to the people that hate us the most.
And let me go on record with one thing I should have mentioned. Bill, you brought up Steve Bannon. He is just a bad actor, and sometime in the next couple of years, he's going to embarrass his boss badly enough that he's going to be shown the door.
It's not going to take a couple of years.
I don't think so either.
Well, we may look back on this week and proclaim, Donald Trump, you brilliant son of a businessman.
I read your book.
We may forgive a rookie mistake. However, since hindsight is tough to pre-order, I'll just say there's an alternative approach for dealing with such a threat. And I'll outline it this way. First, quietly make a plan for vetting immigrants. Base your plan on all the good policy work and expertise that's accumulated over the years by people who have long warned of this threat. Now, this should take no more than a long weekend at a Holiday Inn Express. Second, field test the new vetting prototype through several iterations in cooperation with relevant agencies. And given the massive, steady flow of migrants, this should take less than 30 days. Third, engage members of Congress, the American people, and our foreign allies. Sell the plan. You're a salesman. Fourth, equip and train frontline staff charged with implementing the new process. And fifth, roll out the plan in stages, adjusting as experience reveals unintended consequences. This, by the way, would have been my advice to President Obama about the Affordable Care Act and any number of his executive orders. It's what business people do with new products and processes. But of course, Barack Obama ran the organization like nobody's business. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, and the Right Angle team, I'm Scott Ott. Thank you to the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible.